Today we're going to be doing some thread repair on a GoPro.
Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it.
I'm going to be doing this on a 9 black.
Fix it, fix it, fix it.
But I'm pretty sure this will work for just about any GoPro that has the interchangeable foot. Sometimes you hear them called fingers or foot mount or base mount. We're talking about these little holes. If you somehow manage to strip those out because you're gorilla torquing them or somebody else gorilla torqued your tiny little screws that hold this little foot on, I'm going to show you how to fix that. So first of all, you're going to need this kit. I'll put it up in the description. I will put a link up there. But essentially what it is, you get this tap, this thread helicoil installer, a bag of inserts. Of course, I don't know how many's in there, maybe 20 or 30-ish. There's a little miniature helicoils. If you've never done a helicoil before, I can speak, helicoil before, well, you can watch some videos on how to do the bigger ones. The smaller ones are exactly the same. They're just on a much smaller scale. And then they also give you this nifty little punch, and this is for knocking the tang off on the bottom of the helicoil. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But essentially, that's what you get in a kit. It's not expensive. It's very much worth it. If you stripped one of these, there's a good chance 2 or 3 of them might be stripped out. This particular one I bought off of eBay was already stripped. And the guy had replaced it with a larger screw. He rammed it in there, right? So yeah, I don't know if that's going to focus or not, but you get the idea. That's the original. That's the one that he put in there. So in my case, the hole is actually already drilled out just a little bit. So yeah, we'll get to it. I think if if you're still just sitting there with the stripped holes, the same steps are going to apply, right? So what you're going to want to do first, if you don't have one, this doesn't come with the kit. If you don't have one of these, I think it's worth having it. They're just basically called a little finger drill or a hand drill. It just has a tiny little collet in there, and you just tighten it down like a regular drill. I've got a couple different ones. This one's pretty neat. It's got 2 different collets on the sides. It's got a small size, and then I've got this, the tap actually into the larger end of it. But either one of these will work. I happen to have 2, so I'm going to put the drill into one and the tap in the other. So, you can do this on the drill press. I prefer to do something like this because it's such a small screw. This is an M2. It's an M2 by .04 insert. Really delicate work. Personally, I don't want to do this on a drill press. I mean, if you've got one that has the digital depth gauge and you want to set that to however millimeters depth you're going to, yeah, sure, go for it. In my case, I'm just not that confident. I don't want to take the chance with my GoPro. But basically what you're going to do, you're going to start out here, and I'm going to go top down. But just so you can see this, and I've already got my GoPro mounted, I'm going to turn this sideways for a minute. You're going to want to square this up as close to 90 as you can get it this way, and then also up and down, right? So side to side, you want this to be as 90 as possible. And basically what you're going to do is just very, very slowly, and see this one isn't as good. Okay. There we go. Now we're biting in. So I'm just as slowly, carefully, definitely don't want to rush this as possible. You're just going to finger drill this in. And I'm being real careful here to keep it as square as possible. It's more important to keep it square than it is to keep pressure on it or keep it going at a certain speed. Speed and pressure aren't really as important. And then stop every now and then and dump that out. You're going to collect a little bit of this metal dust that's coming out. I think the bodies of these are aluminum, so you're not having to go very far in. And then I'm just going to do a quick check. I'm going to look at this and just sort of eyeball how far I'm in. And right there, I'm about, I'm going to call it about 5 or 6 millimeters in. Now, the inserts are much less than that, right? Probably not going to be able to do this where you can see it on camera, so you just have to take my word for it. These are 3, 2, These are 3 millimeters deep. Basically, this is just a loop of wire, basically is all it is, and it's sharpened. So it's like a diamond shaped wire, and it's wrapped into a spring shape. And then on one end of it, the wire goes right across the middle of it. So it basically cuts a diameter across the center. So that's why I can put it on here and it doesn't slide down. The way you're supposed to install these is you're going to use that tool to screw this in and then use this punch to push that tang off the bottom. So you want to have enough room to push that tang off the bottom. That's the idea behind going a little bit deeper than you need to. The other reason is that I'm going to show you here in a little bit with the tap. You want to be able to go a little bit further than the depth of your insert because of the shape and the point that's on the tap itself. So you need a little bit of extra room, and I'm going to show you how to modify your tap a little bit so you don't need to go in quite as far as you normally would. So let's see, I'm just going to check my depth. That's my depth. I'm well past what I need. And I'm just I'm putting the punch in the hole and then just sort of sticking my thumb against it and pulling it out. So I'm going to call that good. And that is, I'll just 1, 2, 3 and almost 4, like I'm going to call it like 3.8 millimeters, basically. Just shy of 4. You could probably go to 4. But being that the insert is 2, you know, I think I'm good there. It's almost twice the length of it. So, yeah, so let's get onto the tap. Let me go ahead and get the drill out of here. I'm just going to do one hole at a time because I figured if I show you how to do one, you could take it from there and do the rest of these. So I'm going to chuck my tap down in my finger drill, and I want to show you something. So I'm going to put 2 pictures up. I took a picture of this before I grinded the point off and after. So let me see if I could do this. So here's the before picture, and you can see the little point that's on the end of the tap, and then here's after. So I would call that putting a regular tap up next to the one I grinded probably took 1.5 millimeters off the tip of it. And what that's going to let me do is go a little further down into the hole and thread down to the base of the hole without having to drill into the electronics or whatever's on the other side of this frame, on the base of this, right? So that's all I'm trying to do, is avoid having to go in any further than I absolutely need to. What you don't want to do is grind the point of this off to the point where you've lost the taper. So if you look at a tap, the way it comes, it has a point, right, to help you find the hole.
Giggity giggity.
There's a taper. It starts off thinner. It's not until you get right about here that you're at the full girth of the hole that you're trying to tap out.
Giggity goo. Stick around.
So with this, you want to make sure that you're leaving some of that taper. You're going to take the point off because you don't need any help finding the hole. You want to leave that taper on there because that taper is important. It helps cut that hole at the rate that it should be. You can't just start out with the full size thread. I mean, you can, but it's a lot harder, and it leaves too much margin for error. So what we're going to do now, you can use a little bit of mineral oil if you have it. I prefer not to, just because I don't want to be bothered with having to try to clean that out. And I've already done one. I did this one here and it went just fine without the mineral oil. So I'm just going to go in dry.
Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, tang, walla, walla, bing, bang. Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, tang, walla, walla, bing, bang.
So I'm going to start out here and I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure. And if you've tapped holes before, then you know how this works. You want to keep pressure while you are turning it. Now I can let go and let the pressure off, but when you're turning it, you want to make sure you're pushing in. And the reason is that the threads, you don't have enough threads to bite in and help push the point of that into the hole. So what's going to happen if you don't do that, it's just going to dig in and grab a little bit of metal and then just start pulling those threads out that it just made. So by pushing it in you're releasing the pressure on the threads, the new baby threads that you're cutting towards the opening. You're releasing the pressure from those, and you're pushing the tap in. You're doing the work that the threads are going to be doing later as you put screws in. So I'm pushing in, and I'm probably going to call it like between 5 and 8 pounds. Not a lot, not a tremendous amount, but just enough where as I'm pushing this, I'm creating that tension, right? And now I'm going to go back out. You only want to go in a couple turns at a time, and then you're going to back out. As you're backing it out, you don't want to pull. You're not going to do the opposite of what you did when you pushed it in there. And I've gone in too far without backing it out, so I've kind of sealed myself in there. So I'm just going to work this back and forth very slowly, and all I'm doing is twisting it here, left, right, and I've boogered myself and painted myself into a corner with these, but I've got it now, and I'm backing it out really slowly. Okay, so I'm out. Now I'm just going to bang my threads out. See, look at all that's coming out. That's just the scrap that the tap is cutting as it's going in. So this time I'm actually going to do it the right way. And so go in a couple turns, not a couple turns, but maybe one full turn, and then back it out. Remember, when you're turning it and you're going in, you want to push, and then back it out, push, and then back it out. And what you're doing as you're doing that, you're actually, if you look at the tap, you're actually filling these little troughs, these little channels. Here's a big boy tap. Here's a couple of them. So this is what it looks like. Probably doesn't show up in the video, but as you're cutting in, it's going to fill this trough with your scrap. But after a while, too much collects in here, and then it starts squeezing through and trying to squeeze in and get shoved between your new threads and the teeth that are cutting the new threads. So you want to continuously go in and then back out and then back in and back out. There's probably some other videos that explain it a lot better than I can, but that's effectively what you want to do here. And the other thing about not using oil is it leaves it dry. It's a lot easier to get your shavings out if you can do this dry. You just don't want to do it fast. So I'm going to continue here. I'm going to try to tighten this down. Again, what you can do on this too is you probably get a better bite. If you notice the bottom of these are squared off, and that's just so you can grab it better. So what I'm going to do is, instead of having it, way up here where the collet is trying to bite on the smooth part, I'm going to tighten it down here on the squared off end and see if I can get a better bite on this. And if this doesn't actually work, I do have an actual tap handle that I can put on this. It's a lot easier to do this, because if you use that, you typically have to use something to hold the GoPro, and I don't want to put my GoPro in a vise. Okay, so I'm just pushing, and you'll feel it cutting into that metal as you go in. Remember, you pushing as you're cutting, and then you're pushing a little bit too as you start to back it out, and you'll feel it once you feel the resistance kind of let up and it's easy to back it out, then you can sort of let up. And that's when I'm backing it out, I'm still pushing in as I'm backing this out until I get to the point where that tension lifts off, and now I feel it's just coming out really easy. Just knock your threads out, knock the scrap. Yeah, if I mentioned at the beginning of the video that this is a fast process, then I lied, but I know I didn't say that because I wouldn't. So this is definitely something you want to take your time with, and just steady as she goes here. So okay, back this out again. And now I'm going to kind of take a look at what I've done here. I'm just going to put this under the light that I've got over here. Main thing I'm looking for here, and I realize you can't look and see what I'm actually looking at because I've got my little light over here. But what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get a good idea of, if you look at this hole, the first 1.5 millimeters or so is actually this plastic case, and then you can see the metal is down here. So the metal is actually what you're tapping into. But the way that I have this helicoil installed over here, the threads actually go all the way up into the case. So the helicoil is actually spanning the gap between the metal and the outer rubber. I guess there's plastic there. This is rubber over here, but this part's actually plastic. I don't know if it's showing up in the video, but you can actually see there's about 1.5 millimeters or so of plastic before it gets down into the subframe of the GoPro. So it looks like I've got a little bit further to go. I'm just gonna blow that dust off of my mat before I continue on. And you'll know when you get to the bottom of the hole with that tap, because it will stop. There will be a sudden stop, or it'll just feel like, okay, you can turn it, you can dig, and then you get to a point where it's just gonna absolutely bottom out. That's where you want to stop, because if you keep turning, that's only aluminum. If you keep turning and twisting, you're just gonna dig all those threads out that you built. You're just gonna pull them all out of the hole, and they'll be sitting right there in a pile. So when you feel that sudden kind of stop at the bottom, that's where you want to, unless you're willing to dig your hole deeper, that's where you want to stop. I'm gonna try and install one here. Now, let me show you what happens if your hole's not deep enough. We're gonna try to put this helicoil on, but if the hole's not deep enough, this is what you're gonna end up doing. You're gonna take it and you're just gonna grab the pliers and you're gonna yank it back out, and you're gonna get one of these. So this is essentially, these are two that I did. I put it in, I didn't have my hole deep enough, so it bottomed out before it went flush to the top. So I just grabbed it with a pair of needle nose channel locks or vice grips and just yanked it out. Comes out very easy. They give you a great big old bag of them, but hopefully fourth one will go in here easy, because my first two I goobered up, but I wanted to make sure I had one under my belt before I made a video on how to do this on such a small scale. So let's see. Make sure you're putting it in, and if you look at the bottom of this thing, it's actually got a little groove in it, and if you turn this, you'll get to a point where that stops turning. So this is going to do two things. As you're screwing this in, these threads, you can't really see this, but they're actually loose. It's a spring. It's not glued together or anything. So as you're screwing this in, the first part of this is going to grab. It's going to create a little bit of tension, and then this is actually going to shrink down. It's going to get smaller. It's engineered to be a little bit bigger than the hole that you just tapped. So as you're screwing this in and you're twisting on that tang that's at the bottom, you're actually reducing the size of this. I mean, if you think about it, you grab something that's twisted into a coil, and if you twist it more, the diameter is going to decrease, right? So that's effectively what you're doing. So I noticed this after I was doing the third hole just now, and I actually noticed that it's actually easier just to use this by itself, and I just put that one in by just screwing it in this way, and it worked totally fine. In fact, way better than trying to manage holding this thing and then see where I'm going. With this off, I was actually able to see the depth that the coil was at as I was screwing it in, so I knew exactly where to stop it and have to keep, pulling it out and readjusting. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there. But kind of helps it go into the hole. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to start turning it, and it's It's kind of hard for me to do this in a way where you can see it, but all I'm doing, the same thing I did with the tap. I'm trying to hold this as straight as possible, push down, and I'm just turning this nifty little handle that they give you here on the end. And I'm gonna go as far as I can. And there's a chance that the tang breaks, like it just did, okay? If the tang breaks, okay, and you're not all the way in, and you know your tang broke because it'll probably be in here. Yeah, there it is right there. So that's my tang. So my tang broke off, but I'm not all the way in. I did that on purpose to show you what happens what to do if that happens.
What would you do with a brain if you had one?
So if that happens, don't panic. Don't worry. You got a whole bag of these. You only got to put 4 in, if you even have to put that much in. And you got a bunch of these. So it's not a big deal. This is a very cheap kit. So expensive. Mistakes are easy to fix and they're very cheap. So I'm just making sure that my tang is in fact, oh, you know what I did? I'm a goober. I put it in the wrong hole. All right, hang on, stop giggling, leave me alone. All right, so what I'm gonna do, all right, let me get that out of the way so I can grab it. I'm gonna pop that out, grab it. Now you know how to get that out. They come right out, not hard. Okay, so let me try this again, and this time I'm gonna put it in the right hole.
We're closing in. Get ready to fire.
Same thing as before. I'm just going to start twisting this, thread it down into the hole, and when it gets to the bottom, you'll know it, right? Because it's going to stop right about there. I'm actually going to pull this back out and see. So I could go further with this, but I'm looking at it and I'm actually pretty happy with where it is. Let me see if I can go one more turn, maybe one more quarter turn. And I'm looking at the depth. I'm looking to see how far down it is. Let me see. Oh, there we go. Now I'm locked into it. Yeah, see, now I'm countersunk just a little bit. Now let me take one of the original screws and I'm just gonna see, because what you don't want to do is, if you look at these screws, there's not a lot of depth. You don't have a lot to play with here. By the time you go through this, but if you push your coil in too deep, right, you're only going to get a couple threads into the coil. So think about it. If I'm countersunk, flush, perfectly flush with the top of this, so my helicoil's in the plastic still, you know, about half of this screw is going to be in the plastic situated helicoil and the bottom half's going to be in the metal. You see the point I'm trying to make here? You don't want to put your helicoil in so far that you're only going to get a couple threads into it by the time you get the screw in there through the base. So let's go ahead and put this in. So I've got my 2 good screw holes. What I'll do is I'll just put these in so you can kind of verify and see. Oh, forgot that was a little magnet. You little stinker, give me that back. Okay, sneak up on it. I'm gonna put one in. And I'm going to show you a really slick way to get a couple extras of these screws. If you manage to lose 1 or 2 of these, let me get this installed right now, and I'm going to show you this really cool thing. If you have already heard about this, then just bear with me. If you haven't heard about this, you are going to love this. This is really cool, especially if you're a photographer type from back in the day and you got photography equipment. So yeah, so that works. You get an idea. So, you know, wash, rinse, repeat for the other 3 holes and you're golden. But let me show you this. Oh, it's on this one. So this is the standard foot, right? The finger mount that comes with the GoPro. This is the same mount, but if you notice, there's the standard threaded hole in the middle of there that can be mounted on all standard photography equipment. So if you've got you know, modular interchangeable foot that you move from different sorts of mounts and adapters and tripods and whatnot, you can still use, you know, your mount as you would normally, right? But then you can put these flat and then use the little base there to mount that on your tripods for your camera. I thought it was really cool. But when you get that, you'll get a little baggie of screws, and they send you 5. They send you 4 and an extra. Pretty cool. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of these put together. If you got questions, drop them in the comments. I wouldn't recommend this for the faint of heart. If you're unsure about this, please don't mess around and put a hole through the subframe of your GoPro into the electronics. Just those are the main things that you really have to worry about. And then of course, like if you dork the hole up to the point where now you're at the next stage bigger, well, I would say this. So if you try this and you goof it up to the point where you have completely screwed the hole up, now you're into the next size, it's bigger than an M2, and now you got to go to an M3. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go to an M3, but just simply because you're going to end up in the situation where I was with this one that I bought off of eBay, where you're going to have to use a screw like this that has a pan head on it, and then you can't fold these down flat because they're going to hit the tops of the heads, and you're going to only be able to put it down about that far. What I would do is get some JB Weld, mix it up, fill the hole completely, and then start from scratch. Drill your hole carefully, put your helicoil in there, drill it, tap it, and I will say, I've done this before with JB Weld. It works incredibly well. But go watch a video on how to do JB Weld, and then just be very careful about when you're putting that in there. Make sure you don't get it into these holes over here. I'm not sure what those are, but you probably don't want to get any JB Weld in there. You're gonna want to mix up a very small batch. Use a toothpick to, when you're scooping up that JB Weld, make sure you're pushing it all the way to the bottom of the hole. You want to make sure you don't have any air pockets in there. I've done this before on a larger scale. I'd imagine it would work just fine on a smaller scale. That could work too if you screw this kit up, if you over drill a hole or you booger the threads up doing the tap portion of this, you could probably just JB Weld your way to victory doing that. So other than that, yeah, if you got questions, drop in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. I hope this helps out. Peace.